the room. Good morning, everyone. My name is Roz from the DMV. This is our HR 40 breakdown. We're going to deep dive into it. I have Angie in Baltimore as one of my co-hosts, and the gentleman Arthur Ward from Chicago as my other co-host. What we're going to do is we're going to specifically stay on HR 40. Arthur is going to start us off, and then we're going to deep dive by reading the entire bill. I'll read the bill, and if you have anything you're not sure of, you can raise your hand, and Arthur or Angie or I will break that down. We were also going to make stops in dealing with anything that as far as the Darity edits or the say problematic parts of HR 40. Okay. And when
Mm-hmm.
you come in and have questions or comments other than the co-host, I'm asking you to please limit it to like 2 minutes so we can get through this. And we're not going, off into any kind of tangents or anything. I'm gonna ask you please, and other people are going to come in, and we're going to make sure they understand that we are going to read the whole bill, and it's strictly about HR 40, and we're not going to talk about other political things that are happening because we're just going to try to keep it true to exactly what we're speaking about. Okay, so the room is set, and Arthur, can you come in and let us know the breakdown of what you want to say? Angie, can you handle the requests right now? We're closing, I would say not closing the room, but we're asking people to not come in and speak just yet, but just raise your hand if you need to speak and you're on the stage. All right, thank you.
All right. All right. So, good evening. I mean, not good morning, everybody. This is Arthur Ward. I'm the vice president of the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen in Chicago. And the reason why we're here is because I'm concerned about the confusion about HR 40 within the general reparations movement. Um, and most of that confusion comes from the fact that the majority of people have not read the actual bill, have not read the arguments either pro or con for the bill, and don't understand the details of the bill itself. Bills are designed for the public. That's why they're published. Nowadays, they're published online. They used to be put in publications like the Congressional Quarterly and things like that. But these are out there for the public to read, criticize, and contact their representatives about. The Fix HR 40 campaign was done without inducement by Dr. Darity or Kirsten Mullen to draw general public awareness to the details of a bill to create a commission to study reparations. HR 40 as presently composed misses the mark on what the bill should do. And just because the bill that was first introduced in 1989 by the late U.S. Congressman John Conyers had decades long work behind it to get it out of committee and put towards a House floor vote, it does not mean that the bill itself is appropriately structured for us, ultimately beneficial to us, or above intelligent scrutiny by the affected people themselves. Decades-long work doesn't mean anything when that work is expended on things that logically and potentially won't work. It doesn't matter if that work is expended behind or in front of it. So therefore, me and my passion and those that are interested in terms of getting rid of HR 40, we came to this meeting starting this morning, and hopefully this awareness and action will spread throughout the reparations movement. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Arthur. So that's what I wanted to put up. Angie, can you go in and through, I don't know what it's called, but post the fixhr40.org site, and I'll go in through at some point in time and be able to put that on the jumbotron. All right, first of all, we want to start off by reading the HR 40 bill. I'll take charge of that. Thank you, Arthur, for that explanation of what we're doing and why we're doing it. Because the one thing y'all know about me, this is not even an argument This is more like education to make sure that people understand what H.R.40 is. If you go in, we're looking at the text of it, and this is H.R.40 for the 117th Congress for the year 2021 through 2022. Starts off, it tells you what H.R.40 is to address the fundamental injustice, cruelty, brutality, and inhumanity of slavery in the United States and the 13 American colonies between 1619 and 1865, and to establish a commission to study and consider a national apology and proposal for reparations for the institution of slavery, its subsequent de jure and de facto racial and economic discrimination against African Americans, and the impact of these forces on living African Americans, to make recommendations to the Congress on appropriate remedies and for other purposes. Right there in that opening paragraph, like he was saying, the late great John Conyers, who wrote this, this was just the opening. We have several issues that really need to be addressed. One, the country was not founded in 1619. That's not when the country was founded. So on that first sentence alone, just because the colonies were established, it wasn't like a corporation, or the country as the country wasn't established until 1776. And they also ended at 1865, even though the discriminatory practices carried on until this day. So it kind of ends it at 1865. And then when they're saying African Americans, they're speaking about everyone who's, as far as African Americans, is not necessarily us. It could be Charlize Theron. It could be anybody from Africa that comes over to America for whatever reason. So it's very wide open. So that's part of the problem for it. Okay. Then it goes in the House of Representatives, January 4th of 2021. It tells you a list of signers that are, like Sheila Jackson Lee is the person who's the chief. She's the sponsor, and it goes into all of the congressional members that want to sign for this study. You guys can read all them. I'm not going to go into that part. Then we go into did anybody have any questions right now on that part of it alone? No hands are up. Okay, cool. So the bill to address the fundamental injustice, cruelty, brutality. Wait a minute, I already read that part, but it's in here twice. So that starts it off. So I've already read that. Mm-hmm. Section 1, short title. This act may be cited as the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act. So that's like the short name for it, okay? Section 2, findings and purpose. A, the findings that Congress finds that 1, approximately 4 million Africans and their descendants were enslaved in the United States and the colonies that became the United States from 1619 to 1865. As we stated, that is not the case. 1619 is not when the country was founded. So when you're writing a bill, author, correct me if I'm wrong on my legalities. I know I'm not, but when you're doing something and you have to be very specific. I can't sue BMW 10 years or 100 years before BMW was even created and founded. I can't do that. Correct. You have to sue. If you're going to sue a company, you have to sue that company based upon whenever the company was established and founded and created. Exactly. Not when, like, you can't sue the grandfather of the people that created the company. So that's the problem with 1619. And then it says it gives that small window, like 1865 when the people in Texas for Juneteenth found out about slavery being over from 2 years earlier. So that's when it ends. No, it's
See,
so much more. Go ahead, Arthur.
what the Narc and Cobra axis, that's what I call them, are trying to do is to try to use the legal principle of predecessor companies, okay, in a national, in a, in a country sense. And this is what I mean by that. Let's take Citicorp, right? Citicorp was not always named Citicorp. There were a couple of predecessor companies that had different names before the entity that we call Citicorp. Okay. So when you're suing Citicorp in a corporate sense or a company sense, you can sue from the point of actual origin, which would start with their predecessor company. Okay. The thing is that predecessor company started within the legal structure of the United States. And then the United States itself has the power to enforce any judgments or liabilities upon what would have been the predecessor company on up until the present day. What they're trying to say is that the colonies before 1776 would operate under the same type of legal process, which is false. One of the things that's missing is the fact that when it comes to a company within a country's legal structure, the government has the power to force that company to cough up the money. Whereas when it comes to predecessor entities like colonies or other political entities that existed before the United States, no nation in the world has the power to force the United States to make that consideration. So that's crazy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Arthur, for breaking that down. So that's exactly the issue with even in the findings on Section 2, findings and purpose. It's a problem because they got the dates incorrect, and it doesn't include anything beyond 1865. So they're not
Right.
talking about the failure of Reconstruction. They're not talking about the Black codes. They're not talking about anything dealing with Jim Crow, mass incarceration,
None
uh,
of that.
segregation, redlining. None of that is included in this. Okay,
Right.
so that is the problem with that first with that first section right there. Now, I'm sorry, section 2 with that
Mm-hmm.
first point. Point number 2: the institution of slavery was constitutionally and statutorily sanctioned by the government of the United States from 1789 through 1865. There we go again. Yes, it was. However, they're saying, okay, the United States included they saying 1789. It's before 1789. I mean, even in 1776 they had slavery. So I'm not understanding why they put that date in there, but it
Mm-hmm.
still ends at 1865.
Right.
Because that's when the people in Texas found out. It's just
Right.
whatever. Number point 3 is the slavery that flourished in the United States constituted an immoral and inhumane deprivation of African life, liberty, African citizenship rights, and cultural heritage, and denied them the fruits of their labor. Okay, there we go with a lot of African. Once people are in the country, too, this is in my observation, and they've been in here for generations and born into the country, even though it wasn't set established, like the amendments weren't established. People are saying African, African, African. And the problem we had with the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was that people were not before then people were treated as other, like less than. And
Mm-hmm.
actually it was the people that actually built the country. So if the people that built the United States are not citizens, then I don't know who is. So
Right.
Arthur, you can stop me if you need to step in at any point. Okay.
No, the only
Um,
thing I want to mention, the reason why they put in 1789 is because the Constitution was ratified in 1788, and then it was put into operation in 1789. That's why they put that date there.
Thank you, Arthur, for clarifying that.
Mm.
Appreciate it. Okay. The I forgot what we were. Point three. That okay, no, I said point three. Point four. A preponderance of scholarly, legal, community evidentiary documentation and popular culture markers constitute the basis for inquiry into the ongoing effects of the institution of slavery and its legacy of persistent systemic structure of discrimination on living African Americans and society in the United States. Okay. Now, in that part, they're saying on living African Americans, but it's really more, I mean, it's really the systemic effects. So, okay, fine. And they're
Also,
saying,
them continuing to use the term African Americans keeps the door open for the possibility of diaspora and immigrants to be part of a reparations program.
and that's
This is
what,
part of the lack of specificity that Dr. Darity constantly complains about.
correct. And that's the thing too. And that's one of the things as far as NARC and in Cobra, they want more of a, well, everybody that's black or African of African descent,
Right.
and that's really that's such a broad brush that you can't really paint with it. I mean, you really have to go in with a very fine, intricate brush to be able to talk about specificity. You cannot talk about just African American or those who descended from Africa and then throw on, kente cloth or whatever the case may be. And that doesn't work in the law, because the United States is, you're trying to make the United States uh, pay out for people that did not build a country, were not even
Mhm.
here during that time period of building the country, and through chattel slavery, Jim Crow, redlining. Because who would immigrate? Not only did they not allow them to just come in, but who would just volunteer to immigrate into the country during a time where people were oppressed just because of how they look? They wouldn't do that. So anyway, let's
Uh,
keep it moving. I'm sorry,
okay.
Arthur. Go ahead.
Well, but you're entirely right about that. But at the same time, don't hang on that. And I tell people don't hang on that, because it's just like my political mentor, John Hall, used to tell me, um, you have a lot of things out there that may not be politically feasible, but anything is legislatively feasible. Just like the kind of things that we're doing for DACA, these people are not citizens, and they're getting all kind of benefits that are not that don't apply to us. And
And
some of the other things that they are doing, for illegal immigrants, like this stuff that they're doing in New York City with these licenses and possibly giving them the right to vote in local elections. Anything is legislatively possible.
That's
Oh, you
correct.
keep going.
Because in Baltimore, Baltimore was one of the first states that gave illegal immigrants the right to driver's license, and unfortunately, we did set the precedent for that. Um, and one of the okie doke tricks that politician is going to play, or is playing on us, is that quote, the right to vote.
Mhm.
We as citizens of the United States have rights to vote. What the political establishment is trying to do, namely the Democratic Party, in trying to get us freedmen to side with that, is to uh, pass 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 voting rights to illegal immigrants.
Right,
Basically, that would strip away our rights as United States citizens, and it would also dilute the Democratic Party, because
right,
again, they will vote for them in terms of the Democrats, if they give illegal aliens the right to vote.
Well,
So,
see, and the other thing too, the reason why this is happening is because of the complicity of our black elected representatives. Understand something. Politically at a local level, that is being possible. But why is it possible? Because our black so-called organizations and our so-called black representatives are not taking this to court. Because if they took it even to uh, 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 a federal court, a low-level federal court, all of that would be easily defeated because it's unconstitutional. It wouldn't even make it to the Supreme Court. And if it did make it to the Supreme Court, they would let it stand.
Okay. Let me get back to circle
Oh, go
back
ahead. I'm
to
sorry. Go
that's
ahead.
okay. No, you're fine. Circle back to point five under the findings. Point five is following the abolition of slavery, the United States government at the federal, state, and local level continue to perpetrate, condone, and often profit from the practice that continue to brutalize and disadvantage African Americans. There we go with the name again, including sharecropping, convict leasing, Jim Crow, redlining, unequal education, and disproportionate treatment at the hands of the criminal justice system. And well, they have Jim Crow. Jim Crow, they could have put in like the black codes, but they didn't.
Mhm.
So that's then we already talked about African Americans being mentioned again. So here they go in talking about in point five about how it continued after slavery. So it should have said until maybe until this problem is repaired or whatever, but it didn't necessarily say that. It gave specific dates as we spoke about earlier. Point six, as a result of historic and continued discrimination, African Americans continue to suffer debilitating economic, educational, and health hardships, including but not limited to 1 million Black people incarcerated. We know that number has increased significantly. An unemployment rate more than twice the current white unemployment rate, and an average of 1/16 of wealth of white families, a disparity which has worsened and not improved over time. True, at that time. Um, okay. Now I'm gonna ask for it's a couple people that want to come in, and if you have any questions, please raise your hand. We're giving you like 2 minutes to state something. Like I said, it's got to deal with HR 40, or the co-host will kind of mute your mic. So please, if you have a question or you have a statement regarding what's been read or what's been commented on so far, raise your hand and we'll let you in at this point. If not, we'll continue with reading and doing this breakdown. I don't see any hands. Do you see any hands, guys?
Uh,
Hold
I
on,
think
can
I
you hear
see
I,
me?
two requests.
yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry about that, y'all. Okay, I just want to hit a few quick points about HR 40. Um,
You got 2 minutes.
okay, one, HR 40 was written when cooning was cool. Okay, two, the the bill is trash, and this Congress can't be trusted to make the markups to our liking. Three, HR 40 needs to go away and be replaced by a new bill that pays. And four, these Democrats will undermine us by passing HR 40 as written. Um, and I also want to say that I know you from Baltimore, Miss Speaker, and I actually I went to school. I went to middle school with Maya Rockmore Cummings um, out here in Texas, middle school years ago, and so we communicate now, and so I was able to have a substantive conversation with her about it, and and I hit her with all the black empowerment stuff, all the reparation stuff, and and basically, she's is experienced with political science as she is totally on the Democrat train. And just based on my conversation with her, and we were able to talk because I didn't go at a hostile or nothing like that. We just hit point. But but with her being representative of the Democrats, um, it's dead on arrival. In terms of marking up stuff to Black Americans' liking. Based on my conversation with her, the Democrat Party is a cult. And they will not veer from their anti-Black um, standpoint. So that's why if anything is going to be moved on reparations, it will have to be a new bill. Um, and
Oh,
that's all I
oh,
have to say.
okay, great. Thank you. I was about to say
Uh,
your time. You landed your plane in nick of time. I appreciate that. This is the only thing I wanted to say too on that. I kind of want to give a little bit of pushback. Back in 1980, 1989 is when, as far as my vantage point, we were more aware, and that's when we had our sister soldiers, our public enemies. That's when we were not politically correct was not our thing. And I'm still in that kind of mode where I really am not saying things to coddle people's feelings. And people, millennials, especially younger millennials, like, ooh, that was harsh. And it's like, no, but was it true? And it's like, yeah, that was true, but I'm so used to not coddling people's feelings because of that. So we need to, I mean, we're talking about, this is like Barbara Jordan and people that's called it as it was. They didn't coddle people's feelings when they said illegal aliens. She was in Texas, right? So
Right.
that's the only kind of little pushback I have to give on that. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for that, even. Yes,
And
Arthur.
there's two things too. You got to understand too who John Conyers was. John Conyers was 100% black. Okay, he was not a coon. That's why a lot of the white legislators at the time when he was in Congress hated him. The second thing, that what you're looking at now is not the bill that John Conyers created. What John Conyers was trying to do at the time was to break the ice, to start the conversation on reparations. And again, that time, he was doing this in the middle of the time that Roz just described. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you, Arthur. Yeah, we were. I mean, if people say, well, why? I see right now, like, let me just give you guys this little bit. Like someone was talking to Judge Joe Brown, and he was saying, well, I should be scared of you. I should be scared of the generation coming up because they should be hitting harder as far than me. And what happened? It's like people are so busy being politically correct that it's an issue for our generation. And I'm not in Judge Joe Brown generation. I'm just saying I remember 1989. I mean, that's when we had fight the power and everything else. But let's keep it moving. Um
Yeah.
Thank you, even. B is purpose. So we've already finished with the findings. So we're talking about the purpose of HR 40. The
Now,
purpose of this,
wait.
I'm sorry.
Roz, I
Yes.
want us to focus. I want us to focus on subsection 6 and findings. So, because
Okay,
this is a point that we need to focus on.
let's do it.
6, as a result of the historic and continued discrimination, African Americans continue to suffer debilitating economic, educational, and health hardships, including but not limited to having nearly 1 million Black people incarcerated, an unemployment rate more than twice the current white unemployment rate, and an average of less than 1/16 of the wealth of white families, a disparity which has worsened, not improved over time. Now, I want you all to concentrate on the part that starts an unemployment rate more than twice the current white unemployment rate and an average of less than 1/16 of the wealth of white families, a disparity which has worsened, not improved over time. Now, that part is the only sentence that even alludes to the income and wealth gap between black and white families. Now, this is cursory at best. It's a legislative language drive-by. It is noteworthy that this language was added to H.R. 40 after the Fix H.R. 40 campaign started its political marketing efforts, not before when the bill was introduced in 2019. Dr. Darity has been on a crusade that a reparations program's first effective accomplishment is to close the wealth gap between white and black families. And according to an article that was posted by the Brookings Institute, which was entitled The Black-White Wealth Gap Left Black Households More Vulnerable, and that's by Emily Moss, Kristen McIntosh, Wendy Edelberg, and Kristen Brody, and that was published on December of 2020. And I'm quoting, in the second quarter of 2020, white households who account for 60% of the U.S. population held 84% or 94 trillion of total household wealth in the United States. Comparatively, black households who account for 13.4% of the U.S. population held just 4% or 4.6 trillion of total household wealth, unquote. Now, in a bill that is supposed to study and propose resolutions to this problem, a mere allusion to the wealth gap is not enough. And address in this case, and I'm talking to Cam Howard of Encobra, must mean more than just saying hello. And I am not convinced that anyone in the NARC and Cobra axis has seriously read Dr. Darity's book. Not seriously, because if they did, they would know that Dr. Darity makes a quite detailed case for reparations that not only covers slavery, but all the inequalities and adverse policies suffered by Native Black Americans as a result of Jim Crow and post-Jim Crow harms. And that's why I'm not convinced. That's all I have to say on that point.
Thank you so much for that. And just to polish up for some people that may be in that don't know who Dr. Darity is, Dr. William A. Darity. He is a Duke University graduate of economics from MIT. That's the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He's been writing and studying on our economics for over 32 years. And, basically, this man knows what he's talking about. He has the numbers, he has the data. So, just in case you don't know, as a just a point of reference. Okay. Thank you, Arthur, for that. And I'm on B. The purpose of H.R. 40 of this act is to establish a commission to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans. There's that term again. As a result of, one, the institution of slavery include both the transatlantic and the domestic trade that's within the country, which existed from 1565 in colonial Florida and from 1619 through 1865 within other colonies that became the United States, and which included federal and state governments, which constitutionally and statutorily supported the institution of slavery. I got so much to say on that, but Arthur, did you want to comment on that part?
No, I'll come behind you. Go ahead.
Okay, right here, they're saying 1865. Now, again, here we go with the country wasn't established. So
1565.
Right. And they're going back like 210 or 11 years before the country was established. And they're going back through history and trying to these people, I mean, when you have a bill, you don't want glaring issues like this to come up for people to say, okay, they want to throw it out because of things like this. It's 1565, right? So
right.
that's a lot. I mean, they're going back, like I said, 111 years or 211 years before the country was even established. And that shouldn't be in here. It really shouldn't. And then,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, they ended with 1865 again. So that's a problem. That's a huge issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the de jure and de facto discrimination against freed slaves and their descendants from the end of the Civil War to the present, including economic, political, educational, and social discrimination. Okay, that's important because now they're saying, it's ongoing, but it to me, well, that's basically what they're saying. So after the Civil War, including economic, political, educational, and social discrimination, I think they should have definitely put in, how they forced the Reconstruction era to fail and things of that nature. But they need to break that down more. But we'll get more into it. Um, Number three, the lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery and discrimination describes in paragraphs 1 and 2 on living Americans and on society in the United States. Um, I'm saying living African Americans. There's that word again,
There's
and
that
it's
word
it's
again.
right, and they want to make sure that they're living now. And what about their descendants or whatever the case? So that's point three. Point four under purpose. If you're following the manner in which textual and digital instruction resources and technologies are being used to deny inhumanity of slavery and the crime against humanity of people of African descent in the United States. There we go with African descent again.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not being specific. Like when I said, when they're saying African descent, you can be speaking about someone from St. Lucia, the Dominican Republic, Haiti that happened to be over here, somebody from Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast that came over. They're all African descent, but they didn't build the United States, right? So that's why
Mm-hmm.
we need to have that specificity.
Well, you
Um,
know what, Ross? You know what, Ross? This, as many bills as I've read in my lifetime, this is the very first bill that I've read that's regarding compensation for some kind of injury or deprivation that does not specify where the repair or benefit should go. This is the very first one. Uh,
Absolutely.
the HR 442 or the Civil Liberties Act of 1988 establishes who the beneficiaries are hard and fast in the first paragraph.
Right.
You
Absolutely.
know right off the bat where this is going to.
Yeah, I mean, if you get in an accident from a truck or Coca-Cola, it says your name, it gives your address, it gives your, it gives all it. People know who the party is that was injured, right?
Right.
Here, this is
Yes.
it's so general that I mean, they're saying African descent, they're saying African Americans. Remember, this is to take some of you guys back. The term African American was coined by Jesse Jackson in the 70s. So who are
Yeah.
we talking about? And he wasn't saying it to be specifically about the American freedmen. He was just saying black people, and he
Right.
called them African Americans. So we're talking about a very nebulous, very general group here. Okay.
Right. Well,
Um,
even Erwin Chemerinsky, when Friday Jones and Chad Brown was interviewing him, he said that it's very vague. And if you look, and as you read HR 40, every sentence is open ended.
right. It is.
There,
It is.
there's no establishment, there's no conclusion. They don't even establish, HR 40 doesn't even establish our citizenship.
Exactly.
It talks about African citizenship, But African citizenship ended when those African royals and African slave traders sold us. The line was drawn. Our citizenship in Africa was ended by Africans, not white people.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna let a couple people who have their hands up. Thank you,
Go ahead.
everybody. Then I'm gonna just basically reset the room. So Alexis, you can speak, and then we're gonna have political. You can come in and speak, sir.
Hey, Raj, thanks. Political was before me, and I don't have a question anymore.
All right, no problem. Thank you. Political. I apologize, brother. You got your question.
Hey, I don't care if, as long as one of us cutting the line, shoot, the rest of them can go. Uh, I just wanted to say um, the first thing is the HR40 is a study, as y'all highlighted. It's a gift and a curse because it's a curse because it's very vague. Um, it speaks it speaks very widely, and yes, it could be tossed simply because it will require too much resources if they go in that direction. But it's a gift because regardless of who they highlight in there, they're specifying everything that happened to us and in the labels that we went under, or should I say, the classifications. Um, and what they're going to find when they do all this research on on the vagueness, and they're going to basically say, hey, we don't owe the Africans from the continent anything. We don't owe the Indians or whatever anything. We owe who we do owe is this much from all these things that occur to these specific group of people. They can have as many groups of people they want, and they can try to be inclusive of as everybody they want. This is just a study. This is not allocation of funds. This is a study to make proposals. And with that being said, I wouldn't. I was in a phase for a long period of time saying that we need to specify. We need to specify. We need to be specific with the people. But as long as we're inclusive, as long as we're in that group of people, I don't care what other group people they could try to throw in there because the research is going to find that this group of people already received reparations. This group of people doesn't deserve reparations, and this group of people who's supposed to be getting reparations.
Okay,
Um,
political. I'm sorry.
mm,
I do need to have you end it there. I mean, you can come
yeah,
back at another point because I'm giving everybody 2 minutes so we can go through this and we can break it down
absolutely.
into our deep dive. Okay.
All
All
right. Well,
right.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. No problem. All right. Let me set the room again. I want to thank everybody for showing up for our HR40 breakdown. Let's deep dive into it. I will be reading. I am reading and we're going over it. It's in the Jumbotron. If you want the link to go there on your phone or on your tablet and to read along with me. And we're doing a breakdown. My co-hosts are Arthur Ward from Chicago and Angie from Baltimore. And what we're doing is we're going to read through it. We got some points to make, and we're going to give you guys space if you have a question or if you have to go into it. We're specifically talking about HR40 and the effects thereof. So please make sure it's in that time frame. And we're giving everybody like 2 minutes when you do comment so we can get through this. And that's it. Okay, so the room has been set. If you go into something else that we're not speaking about, dealing with HR40, we're going to ask you. We're going to just have to mute you so we can keep it going. I'm not trying to be rude, but we got a lot to cover, even though it's like we're just starting on the purposes part. Okay, all right. So I'm sorry, I forgot where I was. This thing right here is so general. Okay, so we're on point five. Point five under purpose. The role of Northern complicity in the Southern based institution of slavery.
What?
Right. Like, okay.
It was the entire country.
Right, exactly. It's like they're talking about 13 colony stuff, and it was the entire country. that
Right, there are whole
the
books
whole
that you can go on Amazon right now that talk about slavery in New York City, slavery in what is called Philadelphia. My dad's side of the family, they were enslaved in Central Illinois. What are they talking about? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, they what they're trying to do is trying to make it seem like the North was not, the people were not slaves in the North, and I don't understand why they're trying to sell us on that narrative, because that's just not true, right?
Right.
Um, point six: the direct benefits to societal institutions, public and private, including higher education. Let's try all kinds of higher education. What about primary and secondary schools? I mean, the books were well, my goodness, I'm sorry, y'all. Including higher education, corporations, religious and associational. Okay. Um, yeah. So I mean, our ancestors built most of these colleges, like you're talking about Georgetown,
Mm-hmm.
Yale, Harvard, Dartmouth. They were built by our ancestors' hands during
Yeah,
chattel slavery.
weren't they located in the North?
Absolutely, most of the they were absolutely most of the Ivy League colleges are. I don't know. I mean, other than UVA, if they consider, University of Virginia. Other than that, everything is in the North. So I'm not understanding. But anyway, point seven, and thus recommended. I'm sorry, and thus recommend appropriate ways to educate the American public of Commission's findings. So they're trying to think of a way to educate the American public of what the Commission finds out. Um, and thus recommend appropriate remedies and consideration of the Commission's findings on the matters described in paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and point 9, submit to the Congress the results of such examination together with recommendations. So after they go through everything, they're just basically going to go back to Congress and report to them what they find and what they recommend. All
Right.
right, we're on section 3, establishment and duties. This is important too, of course. Establishment. There is established the commission to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans, hereinafter in this act referred to as the commission. No big deal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Duties. The commission shall perform the following duties. 1, identify, compile, synthesize the relevant corpus of evidentiary documentation of the institution of slavery which existed in the United States and colonies that became the United States from 1619 through 1865. I know you guys get sick of me hearing saying that kind of sentence, and you know why that's problematic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they're trying to find all of the paperwork and information that they have as far as what happened and what went on in the United States during slavery. They have plenty of that already. They just do. Um, but that's what they put. They put the wrong dates in there. In my humble uh, opinion, anyway. The commission's documentation and examination shall include, but not be limited to, the facts related to A, the capture and procurement of Africans. Okay. The transport of Africans to the United States and the colonies that became the United States for the purposes of enslavement, including their treatment during transport. So they're talking
Okay.
about, go ahead, Arthur.
You know what? That also is problematic because the majority of the companies and the ships involved that were involved in the capture and procurement of Africans were British, Spanish, and Portuguese.
Indeed, they
So,
were.
so that's a problem. We
And
can't go
French.
after that in
Let's
this
not
bill.
leave them out. Let's not leave the
And what
French
and
out.
French? Well, basically what I'm saying is that these were foreign entities, which shouldn't even be discussed in this bill. We're talking about once they landed on the shores of what is now the United States and were sold, and then their progeny lasted until 1776. This is where we need to be starting. All of this stuff before then is nothing but fluff, and it's also, it gives the legislature ammunition to throttle this bill. Keep going. I'm sorry.
All right. C. The sale and acquisition of Africans as chattel property. I'm sorry, in interstate and intrastate commerce. There we go. Um,
Mm-hmm.
D. The treatment of Africans. Here we go. African slaves in the colonies and the United States, including deprivation of their freedom, exploitation of their labor, and destruction of their culture, language, religion, and families, and E, the extensive denial of humanity, sexual abuse, and chattelization of persons. Okay. Um, Point two, the role. I see a hand up. Did we want to go to a question, Ty? Like 2 minutes, Ty. 2 minutes, and make sure it's on HR 40, please, sir.
Hi Roz. I'm gonna make sure it's on HR 40. Hey Arthur. Hey Angie. How y'all doing?
All right, man.
Yeah,
How are you?
yeah. No, this won't take long at all. What you're talking about is absolutely correct. But as I always stated when I did the HR 40 room, the biggest flaw in HR 40, other than everything that we're talking about when you dive into it, is the fact that they are trying to, as they say, get justice for anything that happened prior to the existence of the United States of America in 1776. Prior to 76, there is no United States of America. That's colonial America. It doesn't exist to an organization or an entity that no longer. And this is what they did, and this is what they do. I've never been for HR 40. My only thing is we need to stay involved and hold them accountable. Otherwise, these scumbags will push it through and claim, well, hey, Black America didn't say anything, so they must agree with what we're doing, so let's just do this. That's what I'm saying. As you go down and you break it down deeper, Sister Roz, you're actually talking to every single flaw that we talk about in that document. We don't really need it. Let's be honest. There's already been enough studies, but we have to pay attention to the language that they're using and what they're trying to do. No country in the world will listen to the nonsense in this document. You can't base a document on a political ideology and not the facts of what happened. The fact that they talk about Southern slavery, antebellum slavery did not exist just in the South. Here in New York, we know for damn sure they had slavery. We have the proof, we have the receipts. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm going to land my plane right there. Okay? Thanks.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. Thank you, Ty. All right. Um, and point two, that we're in, as far as it says, the role in which the federal and state governments of the United States supported the institution of slavery and constitutional and statutory provisions, including this extent in which such governments prevented, opposed, or restricted efforts of formerly enslaved Africans. Here we go with the Africans again. And their descendants to repatriate to their homeland. Now, who said that? That's just like, I'm gonna step into this one. They're basically saying you're African and we're going to send you back somewhere in Africa after you've been here for generations upon the generations. I don't want to go to Africa. I don't even want to go really to tour, because you got to take like 20 different shots, and I don't trust all this stuff that's going around right now. But repatriate, the United States is our country. This is not, I don't understand that right there. That right there is worrisome, because it's basically saying, okay, we used your ancestors, and we basically, treated you guys less than we treat our pets. and
Hmm.
we're going to send you back to some country that you don't know, have any kind of knowledge or relationship with. And in the same point in time, they're bringing people over here that are not of and from this country, and the country owes nothing to, and they're welcoming them with open arms. So that's highly problematic. Did Angie or Arthur, you want
Yeah,
to step
Oh,
in?
definitely,
I would love to
definitely.
comment.
And right here, folks, you're talking. You a person that's speaking. I've been to 14 countries in Africa, and ain't no Pan Africanism going on there. Okay, uh, Africa is the least Pan African spot on the planet. It's not happening there. And it's one thing I'd like to know. If this aspect of their proposal is accomplished, will Narcan and Cobra secure agreements from African governments to make repatriation a seamless process on the other end for American freedmen? Now, that would be nice. African Americans and others from the diaspora are not recognized as eligible Africans by African governments. No visa or visitation considerations, no nothing. And I only ask because I've noticed that the most vocal Pan Africans have not repatriated to Africa. I also do not know of any Pan Africans that at least hold dual citizenship. You think? No, I know no Pan Africans. I know Pan Africans do not want to live in Africa. They live here. No ownership of a second home, no business ties, not even a dog. And if any are found, let me know. Acquiring citizenship in any African country is a Herculean effort for most members of the diaspora. It's also not worth it. Freedmen Americans that want to live in Africa, I think they should go on their own volition and dime. And if you want citizenship, you're kidding. African embassies and consulates will laugh your black self right out the door. And repatriation, to me, is nothing but Pan-African babble. That's all I got to say on that one.
All right, thank you, Arthur. Yeah, that last part of the sentence, it says to enslaved Africans and their descendants to repatriate to their homeland. Like, what are you talking about? I mean, the United States is the freedmen's home, is American freedmen's homeland. I mean, this is the land that our ancestors built. What are they talking about? I wouldn't even, and going through that blood thing as far as DNA, that's crazy. I'm not going to go through a DNA test to figure out where my matriarchal ancestor came from. That doesn't even make sense. It just is ridiculous. So anyway, section I'm sorry, point 3 is the federal and state laws that discriminated against formerly enslaved Africans and their descendants who were deemed United States citizens from 1868 to the present. Okay, so in 1868 to the present, they're saying that Africans, I guess they certainly mean American freedmen. I don't know why I say Africans, but anyway, are citizens. Um, the other point 4, the other forms of discrimination in public and in private sectors against freed African slaves. Here we go again with Africans and their descendants who were deemed United States citizens from 1868 to present, including redlining, educational funding discrepancies, and predatory finance practices. Okay. And it's more than that. They, like I said, they didn't include the black codes. They didn't include lynchings.
Mm-hmm.
um all of that should be in there, right? Because all of
Right.
these things had happened. I mean, that's just like, I'm not understanding why it's so sanitized like that. I don't care about people's feelings when uh it comes to our history. It needs to be in the bill. It needs to be pointed out. Arthur, did you have something to add to that?
No, but keep going.
Okay, so point 5 is the lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery and the matters described in paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on living African Americans and on society in the United States. There's that term again, African Americans. Point 6, recommend appropriate ways to educate the American public of the commission's findings. That to me seems to be so ridiculous. I mean, you every night they're talking about this, the pandemic or whatever, and you can't get away from it. It's everywhere. It's on your phone. It's on the internet. I mean, we didn't have internet back then. We didn't have cell phones and things of that nature that were in general usage. They were there. They were out amongst the people that could, afford it, but it wasn't like that. But now on the news, we have a 24/7 news cycle with CNN and MSNBC and Fox and these guys. So there,
Well,
and then you got internet. It's so many ways to educate the public. So
well, you
more
know
than
what? I wonder about the sincerity of this recommend appropriate ways to educate the American public of the Commission's findings. One way to educate the American public of the Commission's findings is, first of all, to have an open deliberations. Once you go down further, you'll find that the current version of H.R.40 deems the Federal Advisory Committee Act inapplicable. That means closed doors. This means that the Commission can do anything and everything it wants without making its deliberations or directions public. No progress reporting to the affected, and everything is blocked and locked. Basically, none of our damn business. Unlike the Japanese hearings, all of their deliberations were all public. They published progress reports on their findings all the way up to the end. But these people want to do this behind closed doors. And as you go further down in H.R.40, you'll find them deeming the Federal Advisory Committee Act inapplicable. So this is a bullshit sentence.
that's right. You can curse. I appreciate that. No. You can do it. That's cool. I mean, it helps make things very clear. I mean, I want it crystal for everybody to understand.
Right.
Yeah, because it's like, what are you talking about? And then, I mean, we were sitting up there looking at so many of these trials that are live on the air and people on the edge of their seat. This is a trial, or this is the United States itself on trial, right? That we need to be focused on. And I'm so sick of hearing that, oh, it's going to hurt people's feelings. I don't care whose feelings it hurts. The guys, it's like, this is we're not this political correctness is killing the country. It's killing us as a people, as American freedmen. We can't worry about people's feelings. We got to worry about facts over people's feelings. So point 7, recommend appropriate remedies and consideration of the commission's findings on the matters described in paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. In making such recommendations, the commission shall address, amongst other issues, the following questions. A, how such recommendations comport with international standards of remedies for wrongs and injuries caused by the state that include full reparations and special measures as understood by various relevant international protocols, laws, and findings. Well, first of all, Arthur, yeah, go ahead, Arthur.
All right. First of all, this is another bullshit sentence. There are no international standards for what we are demanding in this particular reparation situation. Even though reparations have been paid to Jews and Aleuts and Japanese and Indians, every reparations program is unique and specific for all different groups. And this is no different in that respect. There is no international standard for American Freedmen Reparations. This is a totally new thing. And the other thing that is unique about American Freedmen Reparations is that if we accomplish this, this will be just as defining a moment in this country as the ending of the Civil War. And then further than that, it will also have an effect worldwide on justice demands. Okay, so not only is there a lot of pressure in the country for this not to be accomplished, but also there's a lot of worldwide pressure and sentiment for this not to be accomplished as well, because if this first domino falls, that is going to cause a shift in the way things are attacked as far as people trying to get their specific justice claim. So there is no international standard. Our Congress and our government pays no attention to international anything. Okay, and that's and we ourselves have to keep this a totally new, a totally domestic, and a totally specific issue. That's all I got to say on that point.
All right, thank you, Arthur. Absolutely, yeah. That I agree. I concur. Um,
Mhm.
and B, how the government of the United States will offer a formal apology on behalf of the people of the United States for the perpetration of gross human rights violations and crimes against humanity on African slaves and their descendants. We're going to say freedmen and their descendants. I mean,
Right.
because what are they talking about? African slaves. They're going to go to our ancestors' graves and apologize. That doesn't make sense. I mean, and they're saying African. Come on. So keep it moving. C,
Okay.
how federal laws and policies. I mean, y'all, we have. I mean, where's the presidential apologies? That could have right there covered it. I mean, people. Wasn't Obama in office for 8 years? He could have apologized on behalf of the country. Biden is in office now. He could apologize on behalf of the country. I mean, that would cover that. But I don't know. Let's keep it moving. Point C: how federal laws and policies that continue to disproportionately and negatively affect. It says affect. Isn't supposed to be well, whatever.
It
African
should be.
Americans. It should be affect
It
EFF.
should be
But
a
anyway,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. African Americans as a group, and those that perpetuate lingering effects, materially and psychosocial, can be eliminated. Psychosocial, okay. I guess they're talking about post-traumatic slavery disorder that Dr. Joy DeGruy talks about, but they didn't say it like that.
Right.
Anyway, D, how the injuries resulting from matters described in paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 can be reversed and provide appropriate policies, programs, projects, and recommendations for the purpose of reversing the injuries. So they're talking about reversing the injuries of slavery. They didn't say, they said Jim Crow, but I wish they would say the black codes, redlining. I mean, you really got to outline everything that this country has done from chattel slavery on, right,
Right.
to our group. Um, everything. I mean, job.
Everything.
I mean, that's like a book in and of itself. But so be it. I really don't care because that needs to be in there. E, how, in consideration of the commission's findings, any form of compensation to the descendants of enslaved Africans is calculated. Well, yeah. So in that, they need to have. Okay, we just gonna keep. I'm gonna keep reading. We're gonna dig more into it. I want to dig, but this is fine. F. What form of compensation should be awarded, through what instrumentalities, and who should be eligible for such compensation?
What
Okay, there,
instrumentalities?
right, like
It's
what,
only one, the federal government.
right. So they're saying who should be awarded. I want to say something real quick. I stepped into a space yesterday, and I couldn't help just laugh. It was a white woman. I don't remember where she was from, and she was saying how her grandson has sickle cell. So does that make her eligible for
Georgia.
reparations? Oh, she was from Georgia. Okay.
Yes, and she came in the 1700s, and she implied that she had her and her grandchildren had sickle cell from basically sleeping with one of the slaves, and they acquired the property. She started off that she acquired property in the 1700s when her ancestors migrated here.
Right. Now, I mean, this is a white woman living fully as a white woman because she, and I think she said I know she said her grandson had sickle cell. So is she eligible for reparations because she has sickle cell, which is partially, no, you've lived, I mean, if this shows me that people have not read Dr. Darity's book from here to from Dr. Darity's book. I'm sorry, this is like tripping me out so much. It's like, what in the world are people talking about? Like, because you have sickle cell and your grandson has sickle cell, and you've been living your entire life, and so has your family as white in America, that you deserve reparations for what? Being a white woman? I mean, it's just ridiculous. But in this, it's like they're asking what instrumentalities and who should be eligible for compensation. That's already been covered by Dr. Darity many times anyway. Um,
Right,
so I mean, that's okay. This was not, notwithstanding. We're gonna move it on to
right.
point G. How, in consideration of the commission's findings, any other forms of rehabilitation or restitution to African descendants is warranted, and what the form and scope of these measures shall take. Okay, what else is going to happen in order to fix the problem? Now, like I said, while this African descendants, African, it's not specific. African American can be anybody from Africa that's now living in America. So they're going to try to people are going to try to get in on the bag. That's a problem. And the more or the less specific you make it, the more people are going to jump in there, from white people to, Africans that just got here, and just people that have melanin in their skin, so that's highly problematic, right?
Hey,
Okay.
Raj, you know
Yes.
what? Let's look at that language again and point out. It says what form of compensation should be awarded through what instrumentalities and who should be eligible for such compensation. What this is a setup for the National Reparations Trust Authority. You know
Right.
that bullshit nonprofit that they keep talking about on the NARC website, uh, that they want all reparations resources to go through for their management. That's what this sentence is about, and this sentence is the other reason why I want everybody to get really familiar with with the post on the NARC website, who should receive reparations and in what forms. Because what they're doing in this article is really spelling out to the public their intentions in this commission. They're letting you know what they're going to do. And this is part of it.
Absolutely.
Okay?
So this is where we were talking as far as not being specific, and these guys, Narkin and Cobra, are trying to. We're all brothers and sisters, yeah. Soul power, Pan Africanism, and raise a fist and give everybody. I don't care if you just walked in on, today. They're trying to get you as part of what is owed to
Right.
American freedmen, and that's the
Right.
highly problematic part. There is
Right.
no way to. I mean, if you're not going to make it specific for us, this is the highly problematic part of HR 40. Okay.
Right. And that
Um,
instrumentality is saying this, Roz, and I'm quoting directly from their website. They said, quote, while NARC welcomes principal collaboration and dialogue, there is a dangerous and insidious debate underway within Black America today. There are forces that assert that reparations should be limited to the period of enslavement in America between 1619 to 1865 and should only benefit those persons who can prove a direct genetic lineage to people who were enslaved during this period. Whether well meaning or not, this position is outside the mainstream of the heroic multi generational struggle for reparations in this country. Therefore, NARC rejects this framework along with its chilling implications. And unquote. And the chilling implications is this, that Caribbeans and Africans won't be able to get a piece of these reparations. That's what the chilling implication is.
right. Now, see, that's a
Okay?
problem. I've heard people saying, a few years ago when we were explaining everything about the problems with HR 40. I mean, this is another breakdown that I've done. And we were explaining to people and said, well, I don't mind if my friends and my sisters and brothers in the Caribbean and Africa get part of the money. Okay, well, baby, you get yours and you cut it up with them. Okay. But you
Right.
do not have a right to sit here and tell people, open things wide up like that to basically make sure that we are not, we don't get reparations. You can't do that. I don't care if you got friends that are like your brothers and sisters. And if you get your reparations, then you do what you want with your reparations portion. If you want to give all the monetary part to your friends, and do it. I don't care what you do. If you want to buy shoes, I don't care what you do. But do not come in and dilute the purpose and the spirit of what the reparations is about.
Right.
Period. Point
And if you
blank.
want to,
Period.
and if
I'm
you
not
want
gonna
to
play
check out
games.
the countries from which your friends are from, if you read Caricom's layout of their reparations program, they hard and fast cut us out of reparations. It's
Yes.
very, very specific to their the net, and I'm quoting from their website. The Caricom Reparations Commission is a regional body created to establish the moral, ethical, and legal case for the payment of reparations by the governments of all the former colonial powers and the relevant institutions of those countries to the nations and people of the Caribbean community for the crimes against humanity of native genocide, the transatlantic slave trade, and a racialized system of chattel slavery. Point blank. Also, another commission, the African Panamanian Reparations Commission, very specific to people that are lineage from slavery in Panama. The Jamaican government petition to Britain for reparations, which was created by the Jamaica National Council, the Jamaica National Council on Reparations, very specific, only only limited to people that are lineage from slavery in Jamaica. So why don't you ask your friends about that?
Right. They can't come. We can't come over there and get from them. I mean, I don't care how much French or Creole you speak. You're not going to go to Caricom and say, "Hey, I was raised over here in South Carolina, Louisiana. I speak Creole, and I've never been to Haiti. I'm not from Haiti." They're not. They're going to laugh at you when it comes down to their reparations. And something Arthur had said earlier, the U.S. is kind of like the if they're the linchpin of the world, and when the US makes a move, then these other European nations will follow. So we if we have allies, I mean, I know we have plenty of allies that are in the Caribbean nations, but once we get our reparations, then that the Caricom will come through. They have no choice but to come through. They have no option. So um, let's keep it moving to point
Can,
C.
can, can I make a comment, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In regards to law, linear the descendant. Linear descendants, also referred to as issue, are the direct descendants of a person, such as children, grandchildren, and so on. The term is most often used in context of interstate succession, as courts prioritize a descendant spouse and linear descendants when distributing an estate. What we are speaking of here, in regards to freedmen, is a direct linear descendant. That does not equate to the fact that even though you might have blood extending to the continent, when it comes down to reparations and our search for justice, as in pursuit of our avenue of justice, not someone else's, dictated by others. Um, we have to prove direct this through genealogy, and that involves work. So the way H.R.40 is written, equating us to Africans, when in reality we were at once called Negroes, which was specific to us as direct descendants of those that descended from slavery. We must keep that in mind when we're speaking of H.R.40, and always keep that in context. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Angie. I'm